Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the dividend portfolio. Today I'm going to go over some of the dividend strategies that I'm looking at and sort of a little bit more of why as we're going into 2026 and tell you a little bit more about that. This is not financial advice. You can look at this more as entertainment. I'm just trying to show a dividend portfolio, how it's working for me, what investments I've decided to purchase, which ones I'm holding on to, how they're doing, and what kind of dividends they are paying out on a monthly basis to see how this would work. However, this is coming from a real portfolio. It's part of a larger strategy because it's not my only positions in terms of retirement funds. However, the more I've learned about this type of strategy, the more interested I've become in it. And one thing that I've learned from my personal investing experience is that part of investing has a bit to do with personality type. And what I mean by that is some of a person's propensity for risk, how much risk they want to take. You might be able to turn that into some kind of mathematical formula, but at the end of the day, I also think that investing has to do somewhat with personality type. For example, some people more just want to set it and forget it. Some people, on the other hand, check their investment accounts once a month, others maybe once a week or every day. These are different people with different personality types that may need to do different things. Even the person who checks their investment accounts every single day may need a different style than someone who checks once a month or once every 6 months, because checking every day can also make lead someone to make like emotional decisions that they shouldn't, because they're seeing, short-term changes, whereas if they check it every 4 or 6 months, they would be able to ride out dips without having like an emotional response. And then you have, like, all the way to your day traders that, different personality types are different things. So if you're somebody that might get scared out of a stock because it has a dip, then I think that dividend investing might be better, because you're looking at the dividend, and I feel like it can help me be less likely to sell, even if like a big fund that's, like, say, tracking with the S&P 500, if it's going down, um in the long term, we are expecting it to do well. Anyone who's just in the regular S&P 500 is going to say that. But I'm going to be even less likely to get scared out of it, um, because I'm still expecting that dividend. And I know if I sell, then I'm going to miss the dividend. So, anyways, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you can sort of go crazy looking at all the different things and min maxing, whatever. At the end of the day, just investing at all is gonna be helpful, for the most part, unless you make some like big terrible decisions. However, what I want to do for the rest of this video is I'll share a few more details. Some of you may have, if you've watched this channel, may have already been able to figure some of this stuff out, looking at the numbers. But anyways, what I want to do in 2026 and where I want to be. And I'm going to kind of say where a person may or may not want to shoot for, by the time they turn 30. So I think so I'm looking at investing.gov. If you go to Google and you type in um, compound interest calculator, there's a bunch of them online. I like this one just because it's short and sweet. It kind of gets to the point, right? Like, you can find ones that have a lot more fields to type in with taxes and blah blah blah. However, I want to kind of go off the vibes, right? I want to go off of, generally speaking, if I generally follow this idea, where am I generally going to end up? I don't have to know every single number just to get the gist of it. That's why I like this kind of thing. So, what's a place I may want to shoot for by the time I'm 30? My guesstimate is that I want to have, this is for dividend only. Um, and I'm going to explain why. I talked to a financial advisor. I don't think should be someone's only strategy, but this is one way to look at it. Um, if I put in initial investment of 60K, say I shoot for 60K by the time I'm 30, I do zero monthly more contribution. I've contributed, I've lived lean, I've lived frugal, whatever. Get my 60K. I'm going to do zero for more contributions. I'm going to do length of time in years. I'm going to put 30 years. So we could stop the strategy at any time during this, but assuming 30 years old, a 30-year-old, and then getting to 60, so we'll put in 30 years. Actually, I'm going to put in 32 so we can see what would go a little bit beyond 30, but we're really looking for the 30. I'm going to do estimated interest rate of 10%, which I think is reasonable for the dividends. We don't need an interest variant, but I usually just put one in here to see like the difference. Compound frequency, we get dividends on a monthly basis, and I'm going to hit calculate. So this is going to say results are in 1.4 million, which is not totally true because we want the 30-year mark, not the 32. So I'm going to go down here and click show table. And then it's going to show us, we want the middle column, the 10%. And it's going to show us the value of the portfolio. Keep in mind, this is if we added nothing else. This is assuming we got to 60K exactly at 30 years old. And then we put this all in dividend strategy, averaging 10% dividends. The reason that I'm doing this is, so we start with 60K, but we're saying we're adding nothing else. Maybe after this, then I put in other stocks or riskier stuff or whatever. Why am I doing this? This may be for a certain personality type. I'm going to do nothing else with this and just let it ride. Well, guess what? At year 29, this says I'm going to hit that magic $1 million, which means this is getting 60K and doing nothing else with it for 30 years. I'll hit $1 million, and at year 30, I'm over $1 million, but as I think I've said before, that $1 million mark, okay, we could say it won't be the same in 30 years, but there's reasons that that statement doesn't matter. People say, oh, you think you need $1 million to retire? Well, in 30 years, you're going to need way more than that. I don't necessarily think that's true for a number of reasons, but it's not the point of this video. I'm looking for that $1 million mark. We'll hit it at year 29, somewhere between year 29 and year 30. When we hit that $1 million mark, the cool thing is if we're still getting that 10% dividend, that means likely, essentially, we should be able to pull 100K per year from it, which will give a decent lifestyle at 100K per year. And this, if it's year 30, put you at retirement. The cool thing about this is if a person were to really hustle or really save and hit that $60,000, they could put it in this 10% dividend strategy, all buying back in, and then do nothing else. Whatever it took to get to the 60K. Maybe they were saving $1,000 a month for a few years. Maybe they were saving $1,500 a month for a few years. If they saved $10,000 per year for 6 years, that would get you there. So we can do, let me change the display here. Um, but we can do some calculations, right? And we can say, like, how much do I need to save, right? So if I want to do it in 6 years, we need $60,000 divided by 6. So I need $10,000 a year. What do I have to save? I have to save $830 a month to get to that 60,000. What if I want to do the 60,000 in 10 years time? So starting at we'll do 8 years. Starting at 22 years old, I'll divide by 8 and then divide by 12. I need to save $625 per month. And in 8 years, so if you started at 22 years old, in 8 years, you'd get to the 60K. Assuming someone was able to save $625 per month for 8 years to get to the 60K, the point of this is then they could just let this ride and literally not have to think about anything else in terms of only retirement at 60 years old. Then you could take this 625 and do something else with it. You could technically, if this all held true, not do any more investing the rest of your life. You may not become wildly rich or wealthy, but at least you'd say, well, I have a strong feeling when you hit 30 years old, you could retire at and with 100K per year coming in, like this chart shows. If you waited 2 more years, then you're going to be making like 150K a year, which is pretty cool. On top of that, you could then take the 625 you were saving to get to the 60K, and then you could take that 625 and now you could be free to invest in other things. S&P 500, keep it safe. You could invest in like higher risk short-term high risk stocks and feel like, well, no matter how I mess things up or how much like I do good or not good or whatever, 60K by 30, I'm going to retire with $1 million. What if I'm not 30? What if I'm 40? So this is part of, I'm over 30, so this is part of why I'm personally trying to speed this up some. So what I'm showing you has 30K in the account. You can tell if you do a little math. That's what I'm grown it to, and then I have a Roth IRA that has more. So right now I'm at 80K, and I want to do this in 20 years to kind of hit what I'm looking for. I'll put in a 21 here so we can see the next year. Estimated interest rate at 10%. I have 80K. Is this enough to just do nothing else? Well, I can figure that out. I'm going to hit calculate with my 80K. With my 80K at the 10%. Now I'm trying to push things and get it to 11%, but we can't like guarantee that. Plus there's taxes, so whatever. This 10%, this is saying for me at 60, I'm only going to be halfway there, which isn't the worst. This is sort of saying if I got here and stopped, I could still bring in 50K a year, which is probably not something I'd want to totally live off of. Could someone live off of it depending on other circumstances? Maybe, but I'd rather have that million on retirement. Feels a lot safer with this kind of stuff for me. So I feel like I'm only getting halfway there. Let's go back to the 30-year-old that gets to 60K. We said we'll put back in $32 or 32 years. We said they needed to save $625 a month for 8 years to get there. Well, what if they kept adding the $625 a month after that? Then what are they going to get? This is what is way more interesting to me. Say you did the $625 a month from your 22 years old to your 30 years old. You hit the 60K. Instead of just letting it ride, you continue to put $625 a month in. I mean, this is how people get a lot more wealthy. You could then retire at 50 years old. You'd basically have your $1,000,000 at 50. And if you just kept going all the way to 60, you're at 2.6 million. And now with this strategy, you're bringing 200K in a year at retirement. I mean, we didn't even talk about Social Security, which isn't like a huge amount of money, but it's like also a good amount of money. And that's if the 30-year-old were to continue to invest. So I'm at about this amount, and I need to figure out if I have 20 years to do this. I need to figure out what do I need to save to get to the $1,000,000. And I think this already shows. Yeah, this is like right on the money. So I need to save another $625 a month, basically forever, to make it to my hopeful retirement. I don't have just a do nothing. If I do nothing, even with this, and save nothing more, I'm still basically only, like I said, I'm only getting halfway there, which doesn't feel that good. If there may be a way to find some other money wrapped up in some things. If that is the case, I could hypothetically be doing this with maybe this amount. If I have 20 years left, if I did nothing, with this calculator, I can pretty quickly see where I'm going to get. This is a lot better. So I may want to free up some of that money because this is getting me much closer to retirement figures if I did nothing else. And if I go more aggressive, and I try to save $1,000 a month, I can get over a retirement goal, but I'm going to be much more comfortable getting in that range. Could possibly do it in 16 years. And could possibly have more than 100K coming in by the time I'm 60, which is probably a good thing to shoot for. Hypothetically, hopefully by the end of this year, if you follow the channel, I can get... I'm not doing all of this in a Robinhood account. I'm only showing this stuff in the Robinhood account, but there are other accounts I'll probably never show. If I, hypothetically, based on this year, I believe I'll be able to get to this amount in all of my accounts by the end of the year. And so in 2 years, I hope to be about here. So let's see where that gets me. And anyways, if you found this stuff, this is what I've been doing to figure out probably how much do I need to be saving. This is saying even if I had 130K at a 10% interest rate, I can't just go cruise control because in 20 years, I will still be shy of $1 million. We can also try to figure out, what do I need to get to by the end of this year? I need to basically have 150K by the end of this year to at least go on cruise control. I don't think I can get to that by the end of this year. So, compound interest calculator, I like the one on investor.gov. Seems super quick and easy. I can play with different numbers. Am I getting the most accurate thing? Because some of the other ones have more variance, more fields, right? Like stuff you can put in. But I want to go, we're talking long time frames, so I need to get more of a feeling of what do I need to be contributing, right? A ballpark at least what I need to be contributing if I ever want to retire. That's what I'm going for. Um, so hopefully this will help you figure out, you know, where you might need to be, how much you might need to be contributing into what kinds of funds. And you can tell when we look at, like, well, what would a 20-year-old need to do? You can see the big changes in the earlier that you start, the easier it gets. If you're literally 30 years old, I think, technically speaking, you could have 60K and just, like, let that ride, and you'd be great. So anyways, that's the video. Thanks for watching.